Do you hear it? The echoes of the past, the whispers of forgotten truths, fragments of memories lost in the shadows. Welcome to BRAINROT, Echoes, where we bring you stories long buried, unravel mysteries cloaked by time, and guide you through the darkest corners of the mind and the universe. Each video is more than just content. It's an echo resonating deep within, urging you to question, to wonder, to explore. Backend index pointing right, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and join us in listening to the echoes the world tried to silence. When humans broke a god. You know what's funny about intergalactic diplomacy, Captain Leo Mercer? He asked, leaning back in his command chair, boots propped irreverently on the pristine console. No one ever tells you how much paperwork is involved when you accidentally broke a god. Lieutenant Commander Eliza Reed rolled her eyes as she continued monitoring the ship's systems. Sir, with all due respect, we didn't break a god. We simply demonstrated that their so-called divine powers were nothing more than advanced technology. Try telling that to the Galactic Council, Leo groaned, running a hand through his disheveled brown hair. They're still demanding reparations for, and I quote, the irreparable damage to the theological infrastructure of the Vitraxian systems. Theological infrastructure? Eliza snorted. That's a fancy way of saying scam. The bridge of the UES Prometheus hummed with activity as Earth's most advanced warship cruised through the star-speckled void. 3 months ago, they'd been on a routine diplomatic mission when they encountered the Vitraxian Empire, a species that had subjugated dozens of worlds by convincing them they were divine beings. Now, they were persona non grata in half the galaxy, and Captain Leo Mercer couldn't be prouder. The trouble had started, as trouble often does, with good intentions. The Prometheus had been dispatched to make first contact with a species on the edge of the galaxy. Standard procedure for humanity's ongoing mission to find allies in the vast emptiness of space. What they found instead was a civilization living in fear of their gods, who demanded tribute and obedience in exchange for protection from cosmic horrors. It took Leo approximately 5 minutes to smell a rat. So let me get this straight, he had said to the trembling ambassador of Nexary Prime. These gods show up once a planetary cycle, perform some miracles, then take a portion of your resources as offerings? The ambassador, a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin, had nodded emphatically. Yes, Captain. The divine Vitraxians have protected us for generations. Without their blessing, our world would be consumed by the Great Void. Leo had exchanged looks with his science officer, Dr. Kai Nakamura, who was already running scans with an expression that screamed, "This is advanced technology, not divinity." And what exactly does this blessing entail? Leo had asked, making air quotes with his fingers. They channel the cosmic energies through their divine staffs, the ambassador explained reverently. The skies light up with celestial fire, and our crops grow abundant for another cycle. Leo had mumbled before turning to Kai. Thoughts? Atmospheric manipulation. Kai had replied immediately, probably using ionized particles to stimulate plant growth. Basic terraforming tech, Captain. We've been doing similar things on Mars for decades. And that was when Leo had made what the Galactic Council would later call the most diplomatically catastrophic decision in recent interstellar history. He'd invited himself to attend the next divine visitation. Incoming transmission from Earth Command, Captain. Communications Officer Dax Okafor announced, interrupting Leo's reminiscing. Leo swung his boots off the console and sat up straight. Put it through, Dax. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the stern face of Admiral Hoshiko Tanaka, whose perpetual scowl had only deepened since the Vitraxian incident. Captain Mercer, she said, her voice crisp with barely contained irritation. I've just spent 4 hours in a virtual conference with the Galactic Council trying to explain why one of our captains decided to, and these are their words, demystify a religion that has maintained peace across 3 sectors for 15 millennia. Leo cleared his throat. In my defense, Admiral, wasn't really maintaining peace. It was more like organized extortion. That wasn't for you to decide, Tanaka snapped. Then, Visibly collecting herself, she continued more evenly. However, the situation has evolved. Leo perked up. Evolved carefully. Since your demonstration, Tanaka said, 17 worlds have revolted against Vitraxian rule. The Empire is fracturing, and they're blaming Earth. Well, that's not entirely unfair, Leo admitted. The Council has called an emergency session. We need a representative there. And since you created this mess, Tanaka's implication hung in the air. Leo grimaced. You want me to go back and face the music? I want you to fix what you broke, Captain. The Vitraxians are threatening retribution against Earth. They claim to have weapons that can. Let me guess, Leo interrupted. Weapons that can smite the non-believers. This isn't a joke, Mercer. They've already attacked a human research outpost on Kepler 22b. No casualties, but it was a warning. Leo's expression hardened immediately. They attacked Earth territory? Yes. Consider your orders changed. You're to proceed to the Galactic Council headquarters on Centauri Prime. Attempt diplomacy first, but the Prometheus is authorized for defensive action if necessary. Understood, Admiral. After the transmission ended, Leo turned to his executive officer. Well, Reed, looks like we're heading to the principal's office. Eliza smirked. At least we won't be bored. The Galactic Council and Leo's provocation. The Galactic Council headquarters loomed like a massive crystalline spiderweb suspended in space above Centauri Prime. Various ships from different species docked at its many arms, but none rivaled the sleek, predatory profile of the UES Prometheus. Leo adjusted his dress uniform as he prepared to transport to the council chamber. Beside him, Eliza and Kai were similarly attired, looking various degrees of uncomfortable. Remember, Leo said, we're representing Earth. Let's try to be diplomatic. Unlike when you told the Vitraxian High Priest his divine staff was just a weather control device with fancy lights. Kai asked innocently, or when you asked if their godly robes came with built-in climate control. Eliza added, or when you asked to see their miracles again because you were recording for Earth's Got Talent. Kai continued. Leo shot them both a warning look. I get it. I wasn't exactly the poster child for diplomatic relations, but that was before they attacked our outpost. Now I need to handle this properly. The transport beam hummed to life, and seconds later they materialized in the antechamber of the council. A blue-skinned attendant with forearms bowed slightly. The council awaits you humans, it said, its voice melodious yet condescending. Though I must warn you, the Vitraxian delegates are displeased. They're not the only ones, Leo asserted as they followed the attendant into the vast council chamber. The room was arranged in a perfect circle, with delegates from hundreds of species seated on rising tiers. At the center was a speaking platform, currently occupied by a Vitraxian, a tall, regal being with metallic gold skin and elongated features that might have been beautiful if not for an expression of utter disdain. And so we demand justice, the Vitraxian was saying, its voice booming throughout the chamber. The humans have committed cosmic sacrilege, and they must... Speaking of the humans, the council arbiter, an ancient-looking being with skin like parchment, interrupted. The Earth delegation has arrived. All eyes turned to Leo and his officers. The Vitraxian speaker's golden skin flushed a deeper hue. Anger, Leo anticipated. Captain Leo Mercer, the Vitraxian hissed. The Defiler. High Priest Zolter, Leo replied with a nod. Or should I call you Chief Engineer now, given that your divine powers turned out to be advanced terraforming equipment and all? A murmur rippled through the council chamber. The arbiter banged a gavel-like appendage. Captain Mercer, you will refrain from inflammatory statements, the arbiter admonished. High Priest Zolter, please continue your testimony. Zolter straightened his golden robes, shimmering under the chamber's lights. As I was saying, the humans have interfered with the divine order. Since their interference, 17 worlds have fallen into chaos. Resources are no longer flowing to where they are needed. Stability has been replaced with anarchy. And for this, we demand the humans be banned from all Vitraxian-controlled space, and that they pay reparations equal to 10 stellar cycles of tribute. That's ridiculous, Leo stated flatly. Those worlds aren't in chaos. They're experiencing freedom for the first time in centuries. And as for your divine order, it was a scam. You were using advanced technology to pose as gods and extort resources from less developed worlds. Our methods brought stability. Zoltar countered. These worlds needed structure. Without us, they would have destroyed themselves, as primitive species inevitably do. Like humans did, Eliza interjected, stepping forward. Because last time I checked, we managed to overcome our primitive tendencies without alien overlords pretending to be gods. Another murmur, louder this time, spread through the chamber. Order, the arbiter called, then turned to Leo. Captain Mercer, what do you say to the charges that your actions have undermined the stability of an entire region of space? Leo took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define not just his career, but potentially humanity's standing in the galactic community. Honored Arbiter, esteemed members, he began, choosing his words carefully. I cannot deny that my actions on Nexary Prime led to significant changes in the region, but I reject the notion that exposing the truth can ever be wrong. The Vitraxians were not bringing stability. They were enforcing subjugation through deception. He pointed at Zoltar. They called themselves gods. They demanded tribute. They threatened divine punishment for disobedience. On Earth, we have a long and painful history with those who claim divine right to rule over others. We've learned through centuries of struggle that true stability doesn't come from fear or false worship. It comes from self-determination, cooperation, and truth. Leo paused, looking around the chamber. I understand that my methods were unorthodox, maybe even reckless, but I acted according to humanity's most deeply held values, and I would do it again. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then from one of the lower tiers, another delegate stood. A representative of the Nexi, Leo realized with surprise. If I may speak, Honorable Arbiter, the Nexari said, their voice soft but clear. The council recognizes the Nexi delegation. The Arbiter nodded. For 15,000 years, my people lived in fear of divine retribution, the Nexi said. We sacrificed our resources, our innovations, even our children to the Vitraxian gods. We did not question, because questioning meant destruction. The delegate's luminous eyes sought Leo. Then the humans came. They asked questions. They showed us the truth. And yes, there has been upheaval. Yes, there has been chaos. But there has also been freedom. For the first time in our recorded history, we look to the stars not with fear, but with hope. Other delegates began to stand, representatives from other worlds that had been under Vitraxian control. One by one, they shared similar stories. Zoltar's golden skin had darkened to a burnt copper. This is outrageous. These are the words of children who do not understand the complexities of what? Of making their own decisions? Leo interrupted. Of not being lied to? Please enlighten us about these complexities that justify your deception. Enough, the Arbiter declared. It is clear this matter requires deeper consideration than a single session can provide. The Council will deliberate and... An aide rushing to the Arbiter, whispering urgently in its ear. The Arbiter's papery skin paled. It appears, the Arbiter said gravely, that deliberation may need to wait. A Vitraxian warship has just entered the Centauri system and is demanding the human delegation be turned over to them for divine justice. All eyes turned to Zoltar, who didn't look surprised in the slightest. Well, Leo said dryly, that seems like a completely reasonable response to a diplomatic negotiation. Confronting the divine. Status report? Leo barked as he strode onto the Prometheus's bridge, having transported back immediately after the council session was adjourned due to the unforeseen military escalation. Vitraxian warship holding position just outside Centauri Prime's defense perimeter, Eliza reported crisply. They're heavily armed, Captain. Energy signatures suggest weapons we haven't encountered before. Shields up. Battle stations. Leo ordered, dropping into his command chair. Dax, are they transmitting? Yes, sir, Dax replied. They're demanding we surrender to them for, direct quote, purification by divine fire. Charming, Leo muttered. On screen, the view screen flickered to life, revealing a Vitraxian bridge that was designed to look like a temple, complete with ornate columns and ceremonial fires burning in braziers. In the center stood not Zoltar, but an even more impressive Vitraxian, its skin white gold in color, wearing elaborate armor that seemed to glow from within. I am Supreme Divinity Zorvax of the Holy Vessel, Celestial Judgment, the Vitraxian announced, his voice reverberating with artificial depth. You, Leo Mercer, have committed heresy against the divine order. Surrender your vessel and prepare for cleansing. Leo leaned forward in his chair. Supreme Divinity? Huh? That's quite a title. I'm just Captain Leo Mercer of the United Earth ship Prometheus. No divinity here, just a guy doing his job. Your insolence only compounds your sin. Zorvax declared. We have been merciful in allowing your species to exist thus far, but your actions on Nexari Prime cannot be tolerated. About that, Leo said conversationally, I've been wondering something. If you're really gods, why do you need spaceships? Couldn't you just, I don't know, teleport? Wave your hands and make me disappear? That would be much more impressive than threatening me with weapons. Zorvax's eyes narrowed. Our divine powers are beyond your comprehension, human. See, I understand just fine, Leo countered. You're using advanced technology to intimidate less developed species. Same scam, different day. The only difference is now you're directly threatening a United Earth vessel, which I should warn you, is an act of war. We do not fear your primitive weapons. Zorvax sneered. Your ship will be ash in the void within moments. The transmission cut off. Well, that went well, Leo remarked, then immediately shifted to command mode. Tactical analysis of their weapon systems, Kai. I need everything you can tell me about their ship's vulnerabilities. Dax, notify Centauri Prime Defense Forces and Earth Command that we're about to engage a hostile vessel. Sir, Eliza said, her voice tense. They're charging weapons. Leo's eyes hardened. Evasive maneuvers. Let's show these gods what the Prometheus can do. The UES Prometheus was humanity's pinnacle of military engineering. A sleek predator of a ship designed not for shock and awe, but for efficiency and effectiveness. It didn't have the ornate flourishes of the Vitraxian vessel, nor did it try to intimidate with size or spectacle. What it did have was the culmination of centuries of human ingenuity, refined by decades of interstellar exploration and the harsh lessons of previous conflicts. As the Celestial Judgment fired its first salvo, a blinding beam of energy that crackled with what appeared to be lightning. The Prometheus executed a role that would have been impossible for a larger vessel, avoiding the shot with what could only be described as elegant precision. Their weapons have a 3-second charge cycle, Kai reported, eyes fixed on his instruments. Energy output is impressive, but their targeting systems are sluggish. They're designed to intimidate, not to fight equals, Leo realized. Tactical, target their weapons array. Precision strike, low yield. Let's give them a warning. The Prometheus fired its phase cannons, striking the Vitraxian ship with surgical accuracy. The energy shields around the Celestial Judgment flickered but held. Their shields absorbed most of the impact, Eliza reported, but they're not as strong as they appear. The energy distribution is unevenly concentrated at the front of the vessel. They're used to being worshipped, not challenged, Leo said. They put all their defense where it looks impressive. Dax, hail them again. The face of Supreme Divinity Zorvax returned to the screen, his golden features now tense with what Leo described as surprise. That was a warning shot, Leo stated flatly. The next one won't be. Power down your weapons and return to Vitraxian space immediately. You dare, Zorvax sputtered. No mortal has ever struck a divine vessel. Well, I just did, Leo replied with a shrug, and I'll do it again if you don't back off. You're not gods. You're just people with technology and overblown egos. You will learn respect through suffering. Zorvax hissed, and the transmission cut off again. They're repositioning, Eliza warned. Energy buildup suggests they're preparing a much larger attack. Leo nodded grimly. All hands braced for impact. Divert auxiliary power to forward shields. The Celestial Judgment fired again, this time releasing not a beam, but an expanding sphere of crackling energy that enveloped the space around the Prometheus. The ship shuddered as the strange energy washed over its shields. Shields holding at 72%, Eliza reported. But there's something odd about that weapon, Captain. It's not just energy. There's some kind of data component. Data? Leo frowned. What do you mean? Kai's fingers flew over his console. It's attempting to interface with our systems. Some kind of override protocol. They're trying to hack us, Captain. Leo barked out a laugh. They're trying to hack a human warship with what? Divine intervention? Despite the tension, Eliza snorted. Their divine code is hitting our firewalls hard, but it's not getting through. Our systems were designed to resist exactly this kind of attack. Of course they were, Leo said with grim satisfaction. Humanity learned the hard way about cybersecurity. We nearly destroyed ourselves with digital warfare before we ever reached the stars. He leaned forward. Kai, can we trace the attack back to its source? A slow smile spread across Kai's face. Already done, Captain. I've identified the transmission node on their vessel. Excellent, Leo said. Tactical, target that node. Full power. The Prometheus fired again, this time with all the force it could muster. The beam struck the celestial judgment exactly where Kai had indicated. And this time, the result was spectacular. A part of the Vitraxian ship's hull ruptured in cascading explosions, and its shields flickered wildly before stabilizing at a visibly reduced strength. Direct hit, Eliza confirmed. Their divine hacking attempt has been terminated. They've lost approximately 30% of their shield capacity. Hail them, Leo ordered. This time, when Zorvax's face appeared, the Supreme Divinity's golden skin had paled to a sickly yellow. Behind him, the bridge was in chaos, with subordinates rushing to contain damage and extinguish fires. That, Leo said calmly, was us responding to your attack. The next shot won't be aimed at your hacking systems, but at your engines. After that, your weapons. We'll dismantle your divine vessel piece by piece until you're floating in space with nothing but your godhood to sustain you. Or you can retreat now and live to fight another day. Zorvax's expression contorted with rage. This is impossible. No mortal vessel should be able to withstand our divine wrath. And yet here we are, Leo spread his hands. It's almost like you're not actually gods. For a moment, it seemed like Zorvax might order another attack. Then a subordinate whispered something in his ear, and his expression shifted from rage to something else. Calculation. This is not over, human, he said finally. You have not seen the full extent of our power. Maybe not, Leo acknowledged. But you've seen enough of ours to know this isn't a fight you can win today. Go home, Zorvax, and tell your people that humanity doesn't kneel to false gods. The transmission cut off, and the celestial judgment slowly turned away, limping back towards Vitraxian space. They're retreating, Captain, Eliza confirmed, trying to keep the note of triumph from her voice. Stand down from battle stations, Leo ordered, but maintain shields and keep weapons hot until they're out of range. Dax, inform Centauri Prime that the threat has been neutralized. As the tension on the bridge began to ease, Leo finally allowed himself to slump back in his chair. Well, that was invigorating. You think it's over? Kai asked, a raised eyebrow. Leo snorted. Not by a long shot. They'll be back, and with more ships next time. But today, we showed them something they've probably never seen before. What's that, Captain? Dax asked. Leo's lips curved into a grim smile. Someone who hits back. An idea stronger than weapons. The aftermath of the battle, now being called the Divinity Incident in Council communications, was predictably a diplomatic nightmare. The Council chamber was in an uproar, with various factions demanding explanations, apologies, or commendations, depending on their relationship with the Vitraxians. Leo stood again on the central platform, but this time the atmosphere was markedly different. The contempt from some representatives remained, but it was now mingled with something new, respect, or at least caution. Captain Mercer, the Arbiter began, its papery voice weary. The Council has reviewed the sensor logs from both your vessel and Centauri Prime defense systems. It is clear that the Vitraxian ship fired first, and that your response was proportionate. Leo nodded. Thank you, Arbiter. However, the Arbiter continued. This incident has escalated what was a diplomatic dispute into a potential military conflict. The Vitraxian Empire has withdrawn from Council space and recalled its representatives. They have issued a formal declaration of holy war against Earth. A murmur swept through the chamber. With all due respect, Arbiter, Leo said, they attacked a human research outpost before this incident. They've been threatening Earth since we exposed their deception on Nexury Prime. The only difference now is they're being open about their intentions. That may be so, the Arbiter conceded, but the Council must consider the implications for galactic stability. The Vitraxian Empire controls significant territory and resources. A full-scale conflict would be devastating for all involved. Understand, Leo replied. And I assure you, Earth does not want war. But neither will we stand by while our citizens are threatened by those who claim divine right to rule. From the gallery, a new voice spoke, the Nexury delegate from the previous session. If I may, Honorable Arbiter, the Council recognizes the Nexi delegation. The Arbiter nodded permission. In light of recent events, the Nexi continued. Our worlds have formed a mutual defense pact. We stand with Earth against Vitraxian aggression. Should they attempt to reclaim our worlds or attack human territories, they will face united resistance. Leo hadn't expected this. He glanced at Eliza, whose expression mirrored his surprise. Furthermore, the Nexury added, we have information that may be crucial to understanding the true nature of the Vitraxian threat. Our scientists have been studying the divine technology left behind when the Vitraxians fled our worlds. What we've discovered is concerning. The Arbiter leaned forward. Explain. The Vitraxians' power is indeed based on advanced technology, as the humans suspected, but it is not of their own creation. The core components bear engineering markers that match artifacts found in the ruins of the precursor civilization. This announcement sent a shock through the chamber. Even Leo, relatively new to galactic politics, knew of the discovery of the precursors, an ancient species believed to have achieved technological marvels before mysteriously vanishing millions of years ago. You're saying, Leo said slowly, that the Vitraxians have been using salvaged precursor tech to pose as gods. Not just using it, the Nexi corrected, monopolizing it. Our research suggests they've been systematically locating and hoarding precursor artifacts across the galaxy. Their divine empire is built on controlling access to this technology. The implications were staggering. If true, this wasn't just about freeing a few worlds from religious tyranny. It was about preventing a single species from controlling what might be the most powerful technology in the galaxy. The Arbiter was silent for a long moment. Finally, it spoke. This council will need to verify these claims. If true, they represent a significant shift in our understanding of the situation. It turned to Leo. Captain Mercer, what does Earth intend to do now? Leo considered his words carefully. This was no longer just about the Prometheus or his actions on Nexury Prime. This was about humanity's place in a galaxy that had just become much more complicated and potentially much more dangerous. Earth will defend itself and its allies, he said finally. But we also propose a joint research initiative. If the Vitraxians have been hoarding precursor technology, then it's in everyone's interest to understand exactly what we're dealing with. Knowledge shouldn't be monopolized by anyone, not even those who claim to be gods. He paused, looking around the chamber. In the meantime, the UES Prometheus stands ready to assist any world threatened by Vitraxian retaliation. We didn't start this conflict, but we won't shy away from ending it if necessary. 6 months later, Leo stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus, watching as a fleet of ships gathered in the space above New Nexury. Some were human vessels. Others belonged to the newly formed alliance of free worlds, the coalition that had grown out of the initial 17 liberated planets. Quite a sight, isn't it? Eliza said, joining him at the viewport. Never thought I'd see the day, Leo admitted. Humans, Nexury, Centaurans, even the Regellian Collective, all working together. All because you couldn't keep your mouth shut about some fake gods, Eliza teased. Leo choked. Best mistake I ever made. The door to the observation deck slid open, and Kai entered, tablet in hand. Captain, the Alliance Council has finished reviewing our findings on the precursor cache we discovered in the Vitraxian Holy City. And, Leo urged, it's confirmed. The Vitraxians have been using precursor technology to maintain their divine status for at least 12,000 years. The cache contains artifacts that could revolutionize everything from medicine to interstellar travel. Kai's eyes gleamed with scientific excitement. And that's just one cache. Our intelligence suggests there are dozens more scattered throughout their territory, which explains why they're fighting so hard to maintain control. It was never about faith or stability, Leo mused. It was about power. Speaking of fighting, Eliza said, the Vitraxian fleet has been spotted at the edge of the DEM system. Alliance Command believes they're preparing for a major offensive. Leo nodded grimly. They're desperate. Their empire is crumbling as more worlds learn the truth and revolt. This could be their last attempt to reassert control, or the beginning of a much larger conflict. Kai pointed out, the Vitraxians still have significant military assets, and they've begun arming their loyal remaining worlds with more advanced weapons. Precursor tech? Leo asked. Some of it, yes, but they're being selective. They can't risk their subjects becoming too powerful. Leo turned back to the viewport, watching as the Alliance fleet ran training maneuvers. In the 6 months since the Divinity incident, much had changed. The galaxy, once seemingly stable under the watchful eyes of the Council and the divine guidance of the Vitraxians, was now in flux. New alliances were forming, old powers were being questioned. And in the midst of it all was humanity, the upstart species that had dared to challenge gods. You know, Leo said pensively, when I joined the UES, I thought space exploration would be all about discovering new planets, making first contact, maybe finding some interesting space phenomena to name after myself. Instead, you sparked an intergalactic religious crisis and a potential war, Eliza helpfully supplied. Exactly, Leo agreed with a wry smile. But here's the thing, I don't regret it. Not one bit. Because for all the chaos and uncertainty, we've also seen something remarkable. Species that have been subjugated for millennia, standing up and claiming their independence. Worlds that never would have worked together forming alliances. Knowledge that was hoarded by the few being shared with the many. He turned to face his officers. That's what humanity brings to the galaxy. Not just our technology or our military might, but our stubborn insistence that people should be free to determine their own destiny. That truth matters more than comfortable lies. That no one, no matter how powerful or how ancient, has the right to play God. Very inspiring, Captain, Eliza said, though her smile was genuine. Now, shall we get back to the bridge? The Alliance admirals are waiting for your input on the battle plans. Leo nodded, taking one last look at the assembled fleet. You know, the Vitraxians still don't understand what they're really up against. They think this is about ships and weapons and precursor technology. Isn't it? Kai asked. Leo shook his head. It's about ideas. And ideas, once they take hold, are a lot harder to kill than people. He straightened his uniform and headed for the door. Let's go show some false gods what humanity is really made of. As they walked toward the bridge, Leo couldn't help but smile to himself. The Vitraxians had claimed to be gods, ruling through fear and deception for thousands of years. And then humanity had shown up, curious, irreverent, and stubbornly unwilling to kneel. The gods hadn't stood a chance. The end.